Captain Marvel Adventures Volume 11, number 66. Captain Marvel battles the dread atomic war. October 1946, a little over a year after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, wiping them off the face of the earth. You had boys coming home from the war, police actions throughout the world, you had all this stuff going on, but the threat of the atomic war, even before the bombs existed, people, science fiction concepts, pulp stories had this idea. The fire from the heavens and the atomic weapons and this and that. But it was a reality now. It was a shocking reality. A whole city could be wiped off the face of the earth. And so this is a threat to really humanity when you think about it. In this comic, which is not just the whole story, there's other stories in this comic as well. But the main story in this is Captain Marvel and the Atomic War. And it starts out Captain Marvel looking over a devastated city, destroyed by atomic hellfire. I mean, that's basically what a city would look like. You got the mushroom clouds, you got the fires and everything like that. And for those who don't know, Billy Batson, who's Captain Marvel, says the magic word Shazam. Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Apollo, and Mercury, and he gets all his powers. And he says all that, and he's basically told, like, there's horrible things happen. Chicago's been destroyed, and he's like, I gotta go investigate this because he was a reporter for WHIZ, and so he goes and travels the world. He turns to Captain Marvel, and the city is burning. It's just flattened, and there's a couple of buildings left, just like after Hiroshima. And he's like, oh my God, this is just, how could this happen? He's trying to save people, and there's like nothing he can do. And it's like, the blast didn't get them, but radioactive burns did. That's how horrible the atomic bomb is. And this is true. Like, I don't know how this was seen back in the day. And it's like, even the world's mightiest mortal shaking the depths of his shuddering soul. It's like, it's the same all over. Not a soul is alive in Chicago. 4 million people wiped out like flies. It's horrible, horrible, horrible. Even though this is, clearly like this big strapping hero, this is a kid. This is like a 12, 13-year-old witnessing just mass death. This smoke isn't just buildings, that's bodies burning as well. I mean, this is just a horror show. And, on his way, he passes over the city of Pittsburgh, and suddenly there's these rockets coming in, these rocket bombs. Atomic bomb, V2 rocket carries atomic bomb warhead. I've got this one, but one too many for one to stop, and basically he's powerless. And he's got to watch as the world is consumed in nuclear hellfire. And one of the most shocking images, other than him just like covering his eyes and like with the wisdom of Solomon and all this, that he's having to take all this death and destruction in. Like, no, this got to be a nightmare. As this scene, this one panel, it's like, but it is no nightmare. And now, following up on the first bombs, a hideous flock of them arrive over America, each guided by remote control to its target city, and just wiping out the entirety of America. This is what ICBMs look like if they were coming into the atmosphere. Now it would be MIRVs, like it would be that, and then break off into multiple more rockets for each individual target. And this is horrible. Like this is a little over a year after the mass public. Captain Marvel was outselling Superman at this time. It was just kicking Superman's ass. And I mean, a lot of kids. I mean, imagine you're a kid, you're 8 years old. You go to school, you go to church. Whatever. Your dad got back from the war, maybe a little messed up, and you're reading this. Like, I mean, this probably gave nightmares to kids. That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, even like reading this. Let's say you're like 15, 16, people up into age. Like, you had like what? Radio. You had movies with the serials and had like newsreels in front of that. You had some TV, and then you had magazines, comics, all that, novels as well. So your limited sources of information and like stories and concepts, and I'm pretty sure this concept won't be you couldn't visualize this on the radio, or you really put this in in movie serials, but this concept of atomic hellfire and just the horror of it. It's like. And he gets back and he's like, there's not a soul alive, Mr. Morris, my old friend, all Billy's friends dead and gone. It's like, this has got to be, how can we stop that? And he just can't stop it. Nothing works. He, like the earth basically goes quiet. And it's like, that's one of the most disturbing parts. It's like, or, it just keeps happening. It just keeps happening. And he's like, 24 hours later, the ominous quiet comes over the world. And he goes out and he's like blaming he says the radioactive rays, because even though he's out, like, the cities are gone, but what about the farmlands and everything, and the people were dead, the animals are dead, and it's like the radioactive rays. Now, this is clearly fallout is what got them, because you got to think, these houses didn't have, they were not well built, and they didn't have plastic sheeting and NBC gas masks and everything like that, and even then, unless you're in like a you know airtight bunker with recycled air and filters, this, that, whatever, you're not surviving this. And the horror comes across. He is the last one. He is he's the only man left alive. And then it cuts to a TV. It's like, yes, this is a horrible truth. I'm the only man left alive on Earth. Well, folks, take a deep breath and relax. As you all know, it's only a television broadcast from station WHIZ. We tried our best to show you what an atomic war would be like if it ever came. And it basically is like, trying to prevent it. And it's like, like, this is basically the day after the 1980s made-for-TV film about the horrors of atomic war. Also, the much darker version of the version of that with the British Threads film, which is even more disturbing, which I didn't think was possible, but it is. So if you've never seen either, you may not want to do that. If you're not feeling the best mentally, because it will kind of really depress you, both of them, especially back to back. But hey, if you're feeling frisky, go for it. But yeah, this comic is one of the most horrific comics I'd ever seen, because the fact that this is a kid, and as Captain Marvel, and there's a different persona, of course, because it would be a different persona, but to tackle this in such an early part of the atomic era, to point out to kids, to families, that this could happen to us, this could happen to you, is such a just fascinating look at the early days. It's like being a little ahead of the curve, and maybe this is before Cuban Missile Crisis. This is way before, I believe this is before the Russians had the bomb. So yeah, so it's fascinating. But thank you for listening, and have a good one.